Did you actually think training metal roof crews would be easy? I did, and I ended up wasting a ton of time on things that made it even harder and more expensive. To help solve this problem, here are 10 things that I've learned over the years that will help you train them more effectively and at the same time protect those precious profits. There were so many times where the customers would ask me why things were taking so long, and all I wanted to do was blame the lack of skilled workers that I had and the availability of skilled workers. Lesson 1, default to systems. So when you're actually focusing on improving your systems first, you actually start to see the holes in your business that are costing you time and money. This way, when you're focused on that, instead of hiring another expense, you're actually saving that money entirely and at the same time plugging a hole that was likely leaking profits for years. So every single night before the rain day came, guys would ask me, are we coming in tomorrow? It's supposed to rain, Alex. I would say, well, let's wait till the morning and see. But by then, it was already too late. They assumed it was going to be a rain day and were hungover in some bar somewhere looking for their shoes. Not only did this push out our deadline, but it was a full day of zero production. Lesson number 2, turn those raining days into training days. So, setting the expectation with the crew that you are still expected to come in on a rain day and it will be an opportunity for us to do some training. The guys ended up liking it because they always got full paychecks for the week, and we were just a little more productive when we went back to the job the next day. Good for morale, good for the pocketbook. So there was a time where I was actually getting constant phone calls about problems all the time. Like when I was out on jobs, I would be getting phone calls left, right, and center. What caulking do I use for this pipe boot? What pipe boot do I use for this caulking? What do I do in this scenario? What do I do in that scenario? And all I did was found myself asking them to call me on FaceTime and walk me through the problem kind of in virtual person. So not only was this an absolute time drainer for myself, but during the call, these 4 guys were just standing around doing absolutely nothing. Lesson number 3, clone yourself. So I think it was said jokingly during one of these FaceTime calls that it might actually be cool if we could record the FaceTime. And then it dawned on me, like, I could actually record a bunch of these videos and send them the video for each of the problems they had and whatever question they had. So, even to take it one step further, I started uploading them to YouTube, and then the guys could access the channel and search for the solution themselves. Ever since then, every video I make is basically a clone of myself working while I'm not even there. Every single day, I got a text from one of my guys asking to bring them something to the job site they forgot, whether it was screws or caulking or a shovel for the snow. So naturally, my response was, what do you mean you forgot the shovel? And their response was always, well, we just forgot or we didn't think of it. Sorry, can you please bring it? Lesson 4, checklists. Finally, I had enough and I started creating checklists that I posted right on the dash of the frickin' truck. For example, before you leave the shop in the morning, consider the following. And they did, and they go through the document, and they didn't have to rely on their memory. That is the point of this. You don't allow the guys to rely on their memory. Not only did their efficiency go up, but so did the morale. It was surprising. Nobody was blaming anybody for forgetting things, and, calling Alex wasn't this dreadful thing. So I always found myself coming to the site in the morning, looking up at the roof and wondering, what the hell did those guys even do yesterday? Without some sort of measurement system in place, there was nothing to compare to, right? So I just always came in and, I was always let down because I didn't know what to compare it to. So lesson number 5, measure performance daily. Not only so you get to see what level of efficiency you're paying for, but also by the end of the week, you have an average of what your crew does over time. This number is pure gold because you can use it to develop and motivate. I always found by adding in a sprinkle of competition, not only did this make work fun for the guys, but the guys were way more motivated because there were stakes involved. And to go one further, if the crews kept their weekly averages up, they were rewarded with some kind of bonus. This was a game changer for my business. Since we're on the topic of rewards, my go-to was always free lunch. If the guys did well, I thanked them for buying lunch. Lunch was on me. So after a while, this honestly just lost its appeal and actually had a negative effect on morale. They would crack jokes about the rich guy buying food for the poor. Yes, someone actually joked about that. bad. Lesson number 6, don't buy them lunch. When I made this change, I saw them produce an astounding 20% more, and it didn't even feel like work to them. Finding ways to get more production out of my staff eluded me for years. Monetary incentives is a bottomless pit. Yelling and screaming just made me look like an absolute crazy person. Lesson 7, pay for output, not input. What I mean is once the money was directly tied to how well they performed rather than the hours that they put in, they instantly had skin in the game, and it was now about how they performed. It was on them to perform. Now, all of a sudden, it was they wanted to get to the job site earlier because it meant getting more done in one day. You can't tell me how many times guys called wondering where the screws are. How frustrating is it to be 2 hours away pricing a job knowing the guys are standing still until you solve this problem? Lesson number 8, truck stock. These small little items that easily can fit behind the driver's seat and instantly avoid expensive, dreadful calls, game changer. Time and time again, I would be sitting there wondering if this guy's gonna show up, if he's actually gonna work while he's at work, and why are you waiting to tell me at 7 a.m. that your cat drowned last night? Lesson number 9, hire slow, fire fast. The slower you take to hire somebody, the more you're going to get to know that person before you start paying them real money. Take them through a rigorous interview process. Don't leave anything off the table. Take them through scenarios, put them in the hot seat, see how they react to you. Do they get easily annoyed, or, are you going to enjoy this person? You really find out a lot about a person on the third interview versus the first. So with the turnover at its highest, I was still blaming Generation X or Y or whoever for all of my problems, from bitching about cell phones to constantly out chasing people around to see if they got my email. People just stop listening to me and they just turn off. Lesson number 10 is be the coach and not a boss. Treat your company like it's a training organization and you are the head coach. Your players are on the field. They need guidance. They need direction, not micromanaging. Think of it this way. Wayne Gretzky's coach didn't score all of his goals for him, but he was on the sidelines holding them to a higher standard so he would have the best chance of success. So thanks for making it to the end, and I have a little treat for you. Your best chance at pricing a job starts at the estimate. Click through to this video right here where I show you how to use a spreadsheet I use in my own business to price jobs profitably. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you over there.